Hello, everybody. I am Liz Wayne, co-host of the LLC podcast. It's an honor to introduce our listeners today to women in supply chain and logistics. And with the LLC podcast, you'll hear inspirational stories. You'll get to hear about ours and others' backgrounds, how we try to empower others, give back to our communities, and all kinds of other fun stuff. So I'm going to introduce our panelists today. Again, I'm Liz Wayne, CEO of Able Transport Solutions. I have Nicole Glenn, founder and CEO of Candor Expedite. Kristy Knichel with Knichel Logistics. Charlie Saffro, CS Recruiting. And Sharon Siar with Saving Our Sisters. We are missing Blythe Brumleave today. She is at F3 enjoying herself, so she will have to catch up with us next time. So this panel gets together about quarterly. I think we missed last time, but the time before that, we decided to, as we like to open up the show talking about the market, we're like, do we have to? And now here we are, maybe 4 to 6 months later, and we have to talk about the market. And we have to talk about how we can help our people, whether it be our employees, our customers, our friends, our freight friends, and everybody else kind of weather the storm and get through hard times. So a lot of our listeners are from logistics and supply chain. They should know what I'm talking about. But in case anybody doesn't, freight rates are at an all-time low. They've stayed there longer than anybody initially thought that they would. Usually our market looks a lot like a hockey stick. And this time it's a really wide capital U that's still kind of missing that right side. It hasn't corrected itself yet. So we're in the middle of a freight recession that's unlike anything we've seen. And everybody's kind of trying to weather that together. We've got carriers and brokers going out of business every day. For some of them, they are no longer profitable. And so they're kind of shutting their doors and moving on. Other times they're fighting for what I would say maybe is too long. And the implications of that is a bankruptcy with a lot of carriers and owner operators left foot in the bill, which in turn is going to put a lot of them out of business. These headlines and stories have come to be a daily occurrence lately. Just before this call, we update each other on a couple of things people have heard just yet today. That's literally the state we're in. Some people are calling it the Lehman Brothers moment in freight. So we're going to talk about the market a little bit today. I think FreightWaves had something a few days ago that I thought really hit the nail on the head for me anyway, but they called it an era of somber recalibration. So the recalibration is needed. I don't think anybody denies that, but it is somber. It's hard. It's sad. So we'll get into some of that and talk about how, like I said, how we can get each other through these times. But let's start specifically. We're all in logistics, but we all kind of have our specialty and our niche. So real quick, flatbed is what I do, flatbed heavy haul. It has overall, over the course of the last couple of years, it hasn't seen as sharp of decline as like the van and reefer market had. Well, reefer and flatbed have not seen as much as the van side has, but rates are kind of staying low. I mean, I think as far as my carriers go, everybody's kind of trying to break even, maybe make a little bit of money until we can get recalibrated, as we said. I think flatbed rates could go a little bit lower through winter. I mean, that's typically when we slow down. We never really saw our summer uptick in rates, but I think there is a chance we could still see a winter downtick. But they are still about 20 to 30% higher than van rates. So moving over to you, Nicole, tell us how expedited shipping is doing. Is it kind of moving with the rest of the market or faring a little better?
Well, it's been tough on the expedited side. So you guys have all seen that the major automotive companies went on strike. And that is a good portion of the expedited business. I mean, there's different tiers to that. So you'll see the tier one and the main automotive companies just halting all shipping. And then you keep going lower. So then you see tier 2, tier 3 obviously being affected, and expedited equipment does move a lot of that commodity. So that was a long time stretch. I think we just got through negotiations now, and it was a 6-week strike. I mean, that's a long time for that to transpire. I think for us too, I mean, what we're seeing, and we're a smaller company, so with that, I'm not coming to you as a massive expedited company, so I don't think we've taken a big of a brunt as some of the other companies out there that have dedicated reoccurring expedite. I know people don't know that really exists, but it does. So we have seen a downturn definitely in that. Obviously, we still see a significant amount of quotes, but obviously that book to win ratio is significantly lower. Margins are significantly lower. And so we are actually at points looking at trailer, since the van market is so down in comparison, you can actually get trailer costs at a lower rate in some markets at some times of the day than you can even a straight truck. So it's educating those expedited carriers on really how it's a domino effect. If it hits the trailer market, and it's less expensive, we need to educate them on sharpening their pencils to keep their equipment running as well. So at this point in time, we've diversified our business. So that is allowing us to really step foot forward and have a profitable months. I mean, we're on the profit train this last month, and it's really due to our expedited LTL, our white glove service offering, our air freight services. If we just were living and dying by the straight truck market today, we'd be in pretty bad shape too. So, and the same concept, like I've gone to quite a few conferences, Liz, and your explanation is like spot on with what the market's looking like. When I went to DATCon, there was a comment that was made by Dean Krogh. He's an analyst that I follow, and he's a good friend of mine. He was saying that a lot of these carriers are even just one breakdown away to going out of business due to the interest rates, due to what's going on with maintaining their equipment and overpaying for that equipment when prices were high. So it's like this, mix of just so many different things happening, and it affects really everyone and every type of company, every mode, every type of position right now in the logistics space. So
yeah,
yeah.
it's a perfect storm of terrible things for a lot of, and I think we're seeing it across, no matter who we partner with, we're all very partnered with a lot of people, whether it's our technology partners, our carrier partners, our shipping partners. And I think we're all seeing really how just the domino effect of how interwoven we all really are too. Kristy, tell us what's going on in intermodal and what you're expecting for 2024.
Yeah, so the interesting thing is when COVID hit, and I know we're 3 years out, but we're still trying to get out of the COVID environment as far as volume, because we were strapped with how much volume we could move by the railroads at that time. So even though the last 2 years have been pretty good for us as far as getting business, we weren't able to move as much volume as we could have. So obviously, able to hold on to margins, but then coming into this year, I would say around April was the month where it just went completely down the tubes as far as, not being able to make as much money. Now you got to bring more volume on, and the volume or the capacity is actually there. But the problem is the truck pricing is a lot lower than what the rail pricing is in the markets where they can compete, which is typically more your long haul moves, or if you're on the East Coast core going from north south down to Florida and back up. But even in those shorter hauls, like 700 miles or so, that would be typically competitive. We're not competitive compared to truck. So it's been very challenging this year to gain some more volume on the rail side. What I will say is, like with the railroads, they're always 6 months behind in what the market says. And by the time they come to realize that, okay, now we really need to make some changes, they're doing that now. So we've had to diversify, meaning taking some business off your typical direct railroads like the Union Pacific, say Norfolk Southern, CSX, and moving with some other asset providers out there that typically we don't try to move a whole lot of business with the asset players, but we were able to get better competitive pricing from them in some cases, and they were doing some unique things. So for us just to hold on to business, we didn't have a choice. So that's what we had to do. Now the railroads are certainly coming to play, but one of the interesting things is their service. You would think now would get a lot better, but the transits are still inconsistent. They're not where they need to be. They are getting better, but I think the toughest sell is if you're close to a truck rate. If you know you're shipping a load and some days it takes 7 days and sometimes it takes 10 days, like that inconsistency, they'd rather just move it on a truck. And speaking as being diversified, we do have a truck brokerage and LTL department. The unfortunate part is we're not capturing some of that business that went off the rail to the truck side because some of these customers were so used to us just being that rail partner. So we have to do a better job of capturing some of that on the other side so we keep it in-house. Now, some of it we have, but there's definitely more there that we could have. And I know the last couple weeks they had talked about the rail market being more they're seeing like a mini peak, so to speak, going on where volumes actually were starting to go up. And I can tell you for us, because of the type of commodities we're shipping, which are some food products, we ship a lot of rice out of California. They had a new crop that came out basically in October. So we're seeing peak shipping with those customers. They got 100% of their water out in California, which hasn't happened in many years. And those customers are booming. So that's helping us right now. And we're also shipping a lot of wine and alcohol, which right now for holidays is booming. And another thing for us as well is Mexico. Mexico has become a pretty large market right now as far as the railroads really trying to gain some business in and out, which is interesting because over time, like that's never been easy to get business out of Mexico because you have to be sending boxes in there. So the railroads will repo boxes in there, but it's always been a challenge for us. But now we've actually won some business coming out of Mexico. We've signed up an agent that's actually in Mexico that does intermodal in Mexico. They need a US partner and they're in some large accounts. So that's another thing that we're working on now. So for us, I would say as a company, intermodal it's definitely, we're seeing an uptick now. And, obviously at some point, I think that's going to slow down a little bit towards the end of the year. With the rice, we'll go into next year, February. But I know this past week, they just reported, though, that the rail was significantly down, like a significant drop in origin loadings. So from the previous week. So they're kind of saying, oh, there was this mini peak maybe for like 3 weeks. And now that they're seeing like this huge decline. So I think across the board, even though those numbers are out there, my company as a whole, though, we are actually seeing an influx of business right now on the rail side. And I think the other thing too, and this is something Nicole and we briefly talked about before the show, was, you don't want to hear about these carriers going out of business, and that's horrible to hear that happens. But as that continues to happen right now, eventually that will bring the prices of the truck market up, and eventually then intermodal will be more competitive. So I'm pretty optimistic going into next year, even though there's a lot of mixed feelings about intermodal. And I think the other big opportunity is really going to be the nearshoring with Mexico. And then the CPKCS now has the Canada through US down through Mexico, a complete line there. So that's another thing that I think will continue to drive business once the market starts to fix itself on the truck side, because that's typically how that works. Even though the railroads are being more aggressive now, sometimes it's still not completely aggressive enough for us to gain more volume there from the truck market. And the other interesting thing I'll just touch on too briefly is, JB Hunt's another big competitor out there for a lot of us. They're also a company that we can also ship with as well, but they have their own trucks and they have a large fleet, I think like 115,000. And they just announced that they had purchased BNSF Logistics, which will then kind of bolster what they're doing, which, it'll be interesting to see how that happens, because typically, we do utilize them some, but in the same token, they're in a lot of business we're in too. And I don't know how that's going to change the intermodal market. It might make it more challenging for some competitors, or maybe some competitors will decide to, do some more business with them. So we'll see how that goes. But I'm optimistic about what we're seeing as a company. But obviously, the data's out there and saying right now intermodal's still down.
Well, I'm glad with it being down that you have, other business segments. That's got to make it easier for you to pivot in that,
Yeah.
which, should help you until intermodal picks up. Because yeah, I mean, it's hard to say, hey, we can do this at the same price as truck, but we need twice as much transit. I mean, that's a tough
Yeah.
pitch, but I'm glad that you can move some business over to the truck side and focus there as long as you need to.
Yeah, and I would say the last thing, kind of to the Nicole's point too, is just being diversified if you can, because having those three modes, we also have a government division, supplier diversity division, and we also have an agent network. And like honestly, all those little pieces do help make up when you have your biggest piece down, which is our intermodal.
Yeah.
So it's definitely, my biggest piece of advice. If you can diversify in some way, shape, or form, it's definitely important when you're in this space.
Yeah. So Charlie, let's hop over to you. Our in-panel recruiter, our hiring guru. The hiring market seems to have done a 180 since we've met and been having these conversations. So how do you and your company adjust to such rapid changes from your customers and job seekers?
Yeah, so I mean, just to touch on everything that's been said, it's a cycle, and we're at the end of that cycle. So if consumers aren't buying, freight isn't moving, and if freight isn't moving, then people aren't hiring. We love working with clients that are hiring because they're growing, because they're diversifying and wanting to bring in experts, and we're just seeing less of that. We're working on more positions that are vacancies because people were eliminated or people left the company. Sometimes we're, getting some hope when we're working on a role because someone was promoted, and that's a great sign that we have an opportunity to backfill it. But the truth is, the professional hiring market, there are a lot of job seekers out there, and we have just a huge influx. We probably have the best talent pool we've ever seen. And I've been doing this 13 years, but there's some great talent out there. There's just not enough professional opportunities for them. What's interesting is you hear that, and I can validate that. And there's tons of data showing that, transportation, manufacturing, distribution, the professional hiring is down. The job count is not where it should be. But then you hear that unemployment is low. And I got an article yesterday that the government is reporting that there are way more jobs than there are workers. And like 5 people sent me this article, and they're like, isn't this contradictory of what you're saying? But those are seasonal jobs. Those are temporary jobs. The space we play in is, permanent placement, professional positions. But there's just a total paradox there. And I just want to recognize that the jobs that are vacant right now, they're probably not the most desirable jobs. And like I said, many of them are temporary. So it's a totally different talent pool. So our team right now, I will be very honest. I always am, like, we are working a lot harder for a lot less, and it's hard to keep morale up. It's hard to stay motivated. I'd say the one thing I'm grateful for is a few years ago, we kind of quietly launched a consulting service, and we do some thought leadership with our clients, really focusing on employee engagement, culture, retention. That all feeds back into recruiting strategy. And maybe back to what you had said, Liz, companies are starting to think about like recalibrating, and we're seeing opportunities with clients that are like, we're not hiring, but we're going to use this lull and this slow time to really get our culture in a great spot and put recognition programs in place and DEI programs in place, because I can't say there will ever be another great resignation, but I can confidently say the market will flip. And there will be a time in the future where there are, not enough job seekers and qualified people out there. And that's what people are attracted to. So that's my advice is, you may not be as busy hiring, onboarding, training people, but use those resources into just improving your culture, your talent brands, the way you engage your employees. That will always pay off, but it will certainly pay off when you get to a point where you're struggling to attract new talent when you are hiring again.
Charlie, I do have one question for you because I'm always fascinated by the, work from home concept.
Mm-hmm.
Are you seeing there's still the talent pool is really seeking that? Are they opening up more into the idea of going back to the office somewhat? What do you have around that idea?
I'd say the talent pool is still very much seeking that. It's like we all had a taste of it, and it's less about like working from home. It's more just about like having flexibility and feeling trusted. But the employers are not honoring that. So I think the work from home, the remote jobs right now, there's about 9% of all the jobs on LinkedIn are remote. That was at like 23% in the Great Resignation. So it's dipped considerably. Hybrid roles are like 14% right now. That was closer to 30%. So we are seeing a lot of return to office mandates and on-site mandates. And right now, employers can do it because people need jobs, but it will be really interesting. I've already heard of some teams that are starting to like, it's probably not the best time to be like protesting that. If you need a job, you go where the job is. But some people kind of retaliate and say like, I was hired for a remote job. You can't tell me now 2 years in that I have to report to an office. And they're right. I mean, it's all about policies and communication and just being very clear and transparent with the way your business environment works.
I'm interested in what you just said there because honestly, that's something we're thinking about specifically on the operations side because we have seen issues and we have a lot of new people like on the brokerage side in particular. And a couple people were allowed to move to different states and those were probably like our more seasoned people. And then the new people don't get to learn because they're not in the office. And as an owner, it's been challenging to grow. And I think that's a big part of it. So it's hard. Trust me, like those are tough conversations to like, this is what we did and we want to be able to do that. And then it's like, but you have to do what's going to make the business money too. But yeah, it's kind of like you're scared because you don't know, like, are people going to leave? Then we've tried to find people that want to be here. And I think it's going to be very challenging to deal with over the next few years.
I mean, there's no question. I was just going to say hybrid is the best solution for everyone. We had a hybrid team for 10 years before the pandemic, but it's hard to manage hybrid. You're dealing with schedules, you're paying office rent and overhead for 5 days a week, and you're not using it to its capacity. So it's like hybrid is the best happy medium and compromise, but I'd say in my experience, I think it's actually easier to manage a fully remote workforce than it is a hybrid workforce, even though that's the best place to land.
Yeah, we're hybrid and people are happy with that. They get to come in Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Monday, and Friday. But I will say as a business owner on Monday and Friday, the Slack is a lot more quiet, meaning because we have general where we're all talking and calling out wins. And so I think as a leader, it's harder to shake the tree of excitement. And especially when your employees right now are quoting that much more and not winning, like there's things that are outside of the employer's really ability to help lift that morale, because when you keep losing and you're not winning loads over and over, there's nothing I can do except give you hope that that will change. So the morale will be better when people are inside the office, because then they're going through it together, if that makes sense. So it's so interesting.
Yeah. And one of our core values is win together, and it's worked for us and we celebrate it all the time. And this year we were finally like, win together also means losing together. And that is not something our team has experience at. And so now we're trying to really, make that part of that value, that it's sticking together, win or lose, but it's a lot harder to lose.
Yeah. And the last thing I want to say too, like we're hybrid also as well. But the other thing is we are moving to a new building next year and it's a lot of money. And we thought about that too. You're going to have 2 days that people aren't there and we're paying a lot of money. So like we do have some tough decisions to make going forward. So.
Sharon, you are quiet over there today. We haven't got to you yet. Tell us what you're seeing in the market and how you guys are weathering the storm, and when is it going to get easier for us?
Well, I've seen this go up and down over the years. And my word of advice to everybody, it's the same thing I've said over the years, this too shall pass. The strong survive and the weak don't. So you just have to hang in there, do the best you can. Yeah, exactly. We're hanging on because of our relationships with our customers. So we have very intimate relationships with customers. We don't have some of the largest customers out there, but we're kind of a one throat to choke kind of company. So customers like that, they call and they get the phone gets answered by somebody they can actually talk to and that understands their business. And we make sure if there is a service failure, they know about it before they have to call us and ask us about it. So that's kind of how we operate our business. And our business is down, but we're bringing on new business because of our relationships. We lost one of our largest account this year because they were owned by their headquarters was in Mexico. It was a tile company. They did business all over the United States, had this account for years and years and years. They're finally, dwindling out. So we're about finished moving them out. The good news is we knew everybody that worked there in El Paso, and they've all gotten new jobs. So we've picked up new business from them. So it's important to know everybody that works at your customer's office. So when I used to be in sales, when I'd go in and take cookies or whatever, I took it to everybody. I just didn't take it to one person. So you never knew who was going to leave. So that's kind of been how I've worked over the years. Back at 9/11, the market was much worse than it is now. I mean, companies were really going out. We were losing drivers like crazy, but it came back. Then in 2008, it went down again. We lost a lot of drivers. We lost all the boomers. The drivers were retiring, and everybody had to recalibrate then too. That's a good word. And now we're going through this again. And we never come out exactly the way it was before. You just have to learn how to recalibrate, do what works, and be able to just to embrace the change, because it will change. Like we're talking about working remotely or hybrids or coming back to the office. We never used to talk about that. Everybody was in the office. COVID changed all of that. And so this will also change how we do business. But again, you just have to hang in there, stay strong, and be careful how you spend your money. Make sure you take care of your carriers as well as your customers, because you don't want to lose them. But I was at the Women in Trucking conference this week, and they said we're probably going to lose 150,000 drivers in 2024. So again, that's going to make the rates go up. But that'll happen for a little while. And then the driver will say, hey, the rates are up. And then they'll come back, they'll buy a truck, and then we do it all over again. Then the rates will go back down. It's just a cycle.
And normally, Sharon, we lose a lot of the drivers to the construction market.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I was at a CEO group thing yesterday, and the mortgage world, right, is affecting to where prices of homes, and I'm saying homes because I'm thinking of home building for construction, they're still holding high because there's not a lot of vacancy, right? People aren't moving because of interest rates.
Right.
So it's so funny to think that the construction market, where our drivers tend to go to be safe to weather the storm, doesn't look that promising either at this point until we start seeing interest rates drop.
Well, and I don't think people realize how much the oil and gas industry affects everybody's business, because it's not just about oil and gas. It's about tires. I mean, they use oil and gas to make tires and, a lot of different products. And so when they stop producing oil, it affects a lot of businesses, which affect our other customers that rely on that, not just our cars and the trucks, so you have to keep up with the market. You have to know what's going on. What I did see this week, one of my old customers, I hadn't heard from him in years, reached out to me. We're working on a project for him, he's from Mexico. There's a company in China. They're moving their whole distribution, their business to Mexico now. So I'm talking to my people I know in the international market to move their product from China to Mexico. Then we're going to do the over the road from Mexico throughout the United States. So there is going to be new business coming up. It's just going to take a little longer to close it, I think.
So I'm interested. I was very interested to hear in everybody's take on the market, but everybody is we're all in kind of the same place. I mean, it's hard right now. I know everybody here is super active on LinkedIn, and you can't open any freight news. You can't open your social feed without feeling it. It's hard as the leader of a company to struggle. It's hard to see your employees struggle. Charlie, you mentioned morale. Like, hey guys, do more with less. Like, that's hard. It's very hard. Carriers. You guys have seen me probably on my pedestal. Like, I am fighting for the owner operators through. This is going to be a big part of how I try to give back to the industry through this recession. But the list goes on and on. Like, it is just really hard to see everybody struggle. So how do we, I guess I'm just going to kind of take two questions and combine them into one, because I want to make sure we have time to hear from everybody on this. But how do we stay positive for all of these partners we have? And how do we show up for our teams and these partners? When, like, to be honest, it's hard for us too, right?
Mm-hmm.
So Nicole, kick us off on that one. How are you handling all this to support everybody else?
You guys know, and every time I'm on this podcast and we talk about, because we've been talking about like the poop environment for the whole year. It isn't like we just started this conversation. It really is the grit, so I think you heard Kristy say it. You heard Charlie say that she is taking a previous company that she's already been working in, like expanding on that. And I think it's communicating that to your teams, right? And having that positive, we can do this. So same thing for us. It's like we're expanding into different things. I mean, we have a bunch of big name clients that we're in onboarding with. And so I think like today I got a quote from a customer that's a very big new client. And so I share that with the whole team, not to say, hey, Nicole, look at you. You're awesome bringing that account in. But to go, it's out there. We can find it and we can come together and work through this. So I think it's having that grit mindset and communicating that that's what's needed. We had a lot of people enter in this space of logistics and transportation during the time when it was easy, right? All of us did. And now they're starting to see what it really is. I mean, this is part of it. It is not sunshine and rainbows all day. It is not Lamborghinis and 3 houses. It is bust your ass, right? And that's never going away. And so I always try to make my team celebrate when they're uncomfortable. So we had one guy that was not very comfortable with one mode, and now he's booking a different mode. And he was like, okay. So I think if you approach it and have that communication that we even had during the pandemic when things were uncertain for people, they just want to know that we're sure. The leader is sure. Now it sucks when it's slow and it's quiet and you're not seeing that gravy train at the bottom of your P&L, but that's normal. And so with that is, we just got to hustle, guys, and we need to beat out our competition. Today, we had a client that's relatively new, and I'm like, I saw a straight truck move. We'd only had cargo vans and sprinter vans before. And so I saw that. I celebrated that with my team. I'm like, you guys want a straight truck? That's awesome. We need to keep servicing the hell out of this account so we can start winning those. And I think they want to hear that from their leaders, and they want to feel you present. And I don't care if you're a $300 million company or you're a $20 million company like mine, you got to shine and you got to tell people like, hey, I feel good about this. We're just going to work extra hard. And it shows with my whole team. They're in it to win it. When it's crappy and morale's tough, they still know that we're all showing up to do the job.
So another thing I heard you say there, you said grit, but I hear you're instilling hope too, because hope is one of the most powerful emotions that humans have. So we would be wise as leaders to be giving that and sharing that, because we know the market's going to change. We know, I mean, I know I've been through this enough. There is some real fun to be had on the other side. And so trying to just be talking about that so we can be something to look forward to goes a long way. You know, that's what hope really is. So Sharon, let me hop over to you. How are you staying positive and showing up for all your partners?
Well, we have to have fun and we have to laugh, because it's so easy just to get gloom and doom and, oh my gosh, what are we going to do? And oh, it's the end of the world. And, I just don't know if I can make it till next year. We don't talk like that in our office. It's, how are you doing? What are we going to do today? We celebrate every single shipment. We made $200. We made $800. We made $50. We celebrate everything. We're talking about the budget for next year. And I got some mixed messages from some of the people in the office about, well, we better not put too many, the goals better be more realistic for next year. And I said, no. I mean, we don't want to make it easy. We want to attain, make sure we meet those goals, but we also want to have something to really work for and celebrate. And so we just try to make it fun. My son yesterday he was in a bad mood and because something happened. And I said, go home. I said, because you're bringing everybody down. We're not going to, you can't be here. So
If you leave,
no, he's straightened up.
that's right.
Because he knew I was serious.
Mama took care of
Close the
it.
door and get some whiskey. Close the door and get some whiskey, Larry.
And so so we bought everybody lunch, and and by the end of the day, everybody's laughing and having a good time. And so you just can't take everything so seriously. It is serious. You do worry about not making enough money. You do worry about taking care of all of your people. You do worry about growing. But I always ask the question, what's the worst thing that can happen? Do we go out of business? We go out of business. We start a new business. I've done it before. I do it again. That's the good thing about having the experience that we all have. We've seen the worst, we've seen the best, and we know how to get back to the best. And we're all still growing in our careers. Even me, we're still growing. We're learning. We're changing. You just can't keep doing the same thing over and over again the same way. That's what they call insanity. So you do have to be willing to change. You have to be willing to try new things. And so I'm like Nicole, I'm looking forward to next year. And Kristy, I think, it may not be the best year, but maybe it will be. We don't know. We don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. So just stay in there every day and keep trying.
Yes. Great advice. Charlie, how about you? How do we stay positive? I was going to ask you too, because I know you're even more active than the rest of us, but who should we be following on LinkedIn to help with the positivity? I know, like for me, some of Kevin Nolan's recent posts have been like, they've bought me 60 minutes of peace, at a time. So throw that in if you could, if there's anybody we're not already following.
Yeah, I think it's a very delicate balance of staying optimistic, but being realistic with your employees. And I think the hardest thing as a leader, which I know you ladies can relate, is a lot of times, like if we're not sharing details with our team, it's not because we're secretive. It's because we're protecting them from burdens they don't need to carry. We're the ones obsessing over the financials and, the future planning. So agree with all of you. I mean, we celebrate the little wins and we do our best to, get testimonials from clients and candidates we've helped and put those testimonials not only in front of the person it's about, but in front of the world to just boost their morale. And a testimonial is not just when we have a successful placement. It's, we made progress. We put the right people in front of them for the interviews. I think we beat a dead horse at CS Recruiting with the term control what you can control, but we're in the people business. There's emotions, there's families, there's variables of humans that are out of our control. And so we focus on what is within our control. And then I'd say lastly, just being real and recognizing that the world is heavy right now. Everything going on in Israel is affecting a lot of people. However, wherever you stand on the topic, it's affecting people. You can't turn on the news or social media without feeling hopeless or depressed. So one thing we did a couple weeks ago was we brought in actually one of my friends, but I just looked in my network, and I have a friend who is a mental health advocate. She talks about crisis management, how to identify signs of burnout or signs of, something more harmful. And we just had a discussion as a team. And like, as a leader, I'm like, guys, I feel the same as you. Like, I'm trying to stay positive and I'm going through the motions, but it's hard now. And I'm not going to sit here and pretend that it's better for me or harder for me. Like, we're all human and all feeling this mental strain. On LinkedIn, I think it's funny because there's a lot of, and I saw your post a couple weeks ago, Liz, about people being salty, and there's a lot of memes and just poking fun at this like fraternity environment that is so typical in brokerages. And it's like, we can look at that from afar and be like, oh yeah, ha ha. Like, you see the typical brokerage fridge with the zins and the alcohol and the cigarettes. And like, but is that really, like, we have the power to change that. And I think female leaders really have the power to change that whole stigma, because not every brokerage floor looks and acts like that. And, the longer that continues, the more we are just discouraging any minority, any diverse audience from feeling welcomed and belonged in a culture like that. So on LinkedIn, I mean, it's funny because I'm not like a huge hashtag person, but lately I'll follow hashtags that are motivation, inspiration. Like, I love the hashtag what inspires me. And then like my go-tos, like Adam Grant, always just, he says what's real with a little dose of positivity. Simon Sinek, Brene Brown, Gretchen Rubin. I think you have to just stick with some of these organizational philosophers because they've seen it all and they really understand like the psychology of business. So I'd say stick to hashtags and just get a few people that sprinkle a dose of reality, but also some optimism and some humor in your feed. That's what we need right now.
Yeah.
Yes, I love all that. That's why I need some positivity in my feed because I'm learning a lot right now. So I don't want to just go dark.
Right.
But there's some content I would put aside if I could. And so I need to take control of my feed a little more, I think, and get some more going on it.
Well, what's funny about some of that positive feedback, I mean, because I try to post positive things too when I post, but I get a lot of feedback from people that tell me I need to stop it because I don't know what I'm talking about. And so you get a lot of negative messaging that a lot of, that most people don't know happens. They don't post it on the post. So that's been kind of surprising to me.
Wow,
That's
Sharon,
interesting.
I was going to say we need to talk about that offline.
I have just kind of stayed away from all of that stuff. I've stayed away from social media a lot. I've kind of gone dark. Well, mostly because I'm focusing on my business and doing all the things I'm supposed to dive into in my mind. But I don't want to see that. I don't watch the news. And again, I know that's like, sometimes people will say that's terrible, but I'd rather talk to people and hear what people have to say about different things instead of, hearing it from one side or another. I don't know. I feel like if I stay away from the terrible things, then I don't get in that train as well. So
I've been conflicted with that more on Instagram, where I just took Instagram off my phone. And you have to realize though that, like, I don't even want to use the word propaganda, and this is not political, but these algorithms, like, they do this to you. So when I go through my Instagram feed right now, it is nothing but depressing information. But I created that because I lingered on certain content that now the feed is like, oh, let's give her more terrible content because she, digested this. And you don't realize, like, your feed is different than mine, but it's all based on your reactions that you don't even, subtle reactions, just things you click on, things you comment on. But I got to a point where I was like on Instagram and I would watch it every night until I cried. And once I cried, I was like, okay, now I'm done. And my husband's like, what? You are torturing yourself. Like, it's not, you know, and I was like, well, am I ignorant for not knowing what's going on in the world? And he's like, you'll know what you need to know without obsessing over it. So I think it's important for mental health just to take a step back when you need to. And if someone has a baby and you don't know, you'll find out if it's important for you to know. Like, you don't need Instagram or LinkedIn to get that type of news.
And I'd like to say I've cut myself off from all social media 5 years ago, other than LinkedIn, and that's it. And I don't watch the news really either. And honestly, I do feel like my life is more positive because of that, because it is mostly all bad news. And then people start arguing, fighting different opinions. And it's been very healthy. Me and my husband both have done that. So it's definitely been a positive thing.
Take control.
Yeah.
Right.
Kristy, before we close, anything else from you? Any other advice on showing up for your team at this time?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I think it's kind of interesting because when Nicole spoke, like that hit head on a lot of the stuff I would have said. To be quite honest, I mean, I think being present, being available, showing up, you know, I'm always reaching out to my team, asking them how they're doing. How was your day? We have chat. So if they're not in the office, I'm always chatting them and asking them. I think another thing is we have also brought in, I can't think of her name right now, but someone is, you know, speaking to the group about certain health things to brighten their days and give them some more things to get through. I send out motivational videos and content to them as well, especially when they're feeling down and out. Another thing we just did last week was customer service week, and it was a week of fun-filled stuff and giving away things and having games, and brought in a massage therapist. And so trying to do, yeah, and it's not that much money to do that stuff, but like those things definitely help. But you know, I think one of the biggest things too, besides that, is we do have a monthly meeting with the whole company, and we do go over financials. We do go over what is going on. We do talk about the wins that we have coming on and what the plans are, because at the end of the day, if they don't know what your goals are and what's going on, even though it's a tough market, and we talked about that. We even talked to them last week about the financial situation. Like, you're hearing all these companies going out of business, right? And we don't want people thinking they're next, because we're also making decisions about employees. You know, some are leaving, some are being terminated, but also like the company's okay. Like, we're financially okay. We don't want you to be concerned. If you are concerned, you can come talk with myself or John. So I think it's really important to be in front of them so they know what's going on. And I'm probably, my dad would say too transparent, but I'd rather be too transparent than not, so that they do understand, you know, where we're going, what we're doing.
And they're a part of that.
Yeah.
I agree with you,
Yeah.
Kristy, because it's like everybody makes up that financial statement. It isn't just
Yeah.
Kristy.
Right.
You know?
And that's what we talk about too. And even just the fact of like, if we can't bring on new accounts, it's about the best customer service and retaining business right now. And we need everybody's support. And we know it's been challenging. Like, I think I say it all the time. And, you know, I repeat myself constantly about that. Like, I know it's challenging. I've done this job before, you know, and been in your shoes, and, you know, it'll change. Like, I've been in this 25 years. So I've been through 3 or 4 cycles where this has happened. This is the most challenging or difficult one. But yeah, I mean, brighter days are coming, and it's just being prepared. I think, like when you mentioned too about all these new companies coming in and not going through that, like, I think the ones that have and understand do prepare better to understand what that's about, and what we're going to face, and how we come out of it. And I think talking about that, and they understand, like, I know we've been through this, so I have money in the company, and these are the things we're focusing on now to make sure, you know, we just weather the storm and things will come back. You know, I feel like next year I'm extremely optimistic. And even though like I struggle, I do that stuff outside and reach out to some of you all, or other friends, and talk about those, and, you know, come in with that face. But to be quite honest, I'm also same with my people, like, hey, you know, yeah, I'm struggling, but, you know, I'll be fine, you know, as well. You know, we just got to get through this together. And so I think all the things all you ladies said are extremely important. And it really is just being present and having those conversations. Communication is absolutely key. So.
Yeah, that's really good thoughts and advice. I know that's one of the main things I'm trying to do, is just knowing that all of my people, whether it be my customers, my employees, like see the headlines, they see what's going on. They're all paying very close attention. So it's like for my employees, guys, you're really, not to sound any kind of way braggadocious, but you're really lucky to work for me right now because I haven't taken anybody's money. So we're small, but we're healthy. We have no debt. We have no investors. I have nobody to financially answer to tomorrow, next quarter. Like we can actually focus on the upside of this big wide U, and we can be preparing to make hay over there. And we can, I guess what I try to remind my people is we're really lucky for the ability to be long-sighted, because as I look around the industry, I'm seeing people have to make very short-sighted decisions. And so I'm kind of trying to separate the headlines, you might say, from our reality. Like, yes, we are small. We are not a hyper growth company, but we are very healthy, and we've never been so grateful to be at a regular growth company and not a hyper growth company. So, and then, for my customers and stuff, I mean, I think shippers should be cautious. I think shippers should be paying very close attention to what's going on, because they will end up double paying some freight bills. There's just no other way it will happen. And so really making sure my customers know, while we might be small, we are very healthy, and encouraging them to check in on their providers, make sure those carriers are getting paid, before it's too late. So we're just trying to be very transparent with everybody and look at what makes Able in a better position to weather the storm than maybe some others, and be talking about that with everybody.
Yeah, I agree, Liz. I just wanted to say briefly, we actually just put marketing about our financials out there and talking to customers about that, because again, like we had a large customer that was shipping with Convoy, and then we started getting all this business, but then they went to another digital broker as well. And I'm just, again, it's like, I think those questions are going to be coming. And I think having those discussions, because there are also companies going out that do have their own money, but the CEOs are not being responsible about it as well. So I think having those talks are important, like you're saying as well, which is what I do too, so that they do feel comfortable.
Yeah, I think we all are scrutinizing our partners a little bit more than we used to, and nothing bad can come from that. I think that's got to be a good thing for the strong and healthy companies in the future. So,
Right. Great.
Absolutely.
This was great, ladies. We haven't done it in long enough.
Well, we'll be back. We'll be back in the beginning of the year, ready to talk about what's next.
Yes.
Yeah.
We'll talk about 2024, and maybe things will have given a little bit by then. What do you think?
Yeah.
I think so.
Hopefully.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. It was so great to see everybody.
Bye, ladies.
Bye.